please press the subscribe button, like the video, and press the bell button to receive all new updates. These lands were reached by ancient travelers and were documented by the Arabs and Chinese at a time when there was no one preventing their discovery. They were the destination of everyone. They were known in the past as the Land of Darkness, and the Ottomans and Arabs headed to them in the Middle Ages, in which there was scientific progress among the Arabs, and they were documented in maps. Details of the ancient Arabs, and we will present the details of the peoples of those lands, which were later supported by Richard Byrd's vision of the eye. Unique, strange, and giant sea creatures have been discovered, which scientists are still trying to discover and study. It is Antarctica, and what is declared and known. Highest mountain, Mount Irison, 4892 meters. The largest lake, Lake Vostok, which is the largest frozen freshwater lake and contains 70% of the fresh water in the visible world. Its area is 14.2 million square kilometers. Antarctica contains the driest areas in the world that we know of. It also contains large sand dunes, where we find a vast desert. For many of the astronomical phenomena of the sun and moon, no one will provide an explanation for them. It has 29 million cubic meters of ice, equivalent to 90% of the world's total ice. It has the most active volcano on Earth, many dry valleys, zero humidity, and wind speeds of up to 200 miles per hour. Because of the Earth's tilt, the sun does not reach it in the winter, so it is a land of darkness, and in the summer, the sun does not set on it. We find in Antarctica an ice wall like a fence surrounding it, and it is surrounded by huge mountains called the Trans Mountains, which contain blue ice and are the separator between what we see and what we do not see. Its width reaches 300 kilometers in some areas, and its height is 4,500 meters above sea level. The most important person who gave us a reference to it in the 20th century and appeared in a television interview available on the internet for anyone looking for it was the American pilot Richard Byrd. Richard Evelyn Byrd was born in 1888. He died in 1957, a sudden and suspicious death. He was an officer in the U.S. Navy and a famous explorer who made expeditions to both the North and South Pole. Richard Byrd's first flight was in 1928. The Antarctic was described at the time as harsh and dry, with temperatures in summer reaching 30 degrees Celsius and temperatures reaching 85 degrees Celsius in winter. He described the place as hard ice, left the flight crew, and undertook an exploratory flight in his plane, after which he returned nervous and asked for the place to be evacuated and for everyone to return to their homes without giving reasons. Upon his return, he was prohibited from speaking to anyone or leaving the military base. Then he was granted the rank of Admiral by the U.S. Congress at the time, and he was the youngest person to obtain this rank. Why? Byrd then commissioned another expedition between 1931 and 1934, which he announced had yielded nothing. Then he was assigned again to an exploratory mission on February 16, 1947, known as Operation Highjump, and we will return to it shortly. This was after the end of World War II, which was carried out with international funding and included scientists and military forces estimated at thousands. Why? Was she afraid of a military confrontation? It had military forces, aircraft, and weapons sufficient to wage war, not for scientific research, as was announced at the time. It had 13 ships, an aircraft carrier, 6 helicopters, and 4,000 military soldiers, but it returned after 3 weeks, even though it had been previously scheduled for 6 months. After the return, a meeting was held. A treaty was concluded between the Soviet Union at the time and the United States of America, and a treaty was signed by 12 countries, which stipulated the ban on any commercial or civilian trip to the Antarctic continent, and the prohibition of mineral exploration there for a period of 50 years. Byrd said, "There are great lands beyond Antarctica, another world that makes what we know of the world a drop in the ocean. The place is crowded, and I do not advise anyone to go there." Richard Byrd did not appear after that, and he died suspiciously, and his daughter published his memoirs, and then she also disappeared. It was mentioned in his diary on his first flight there was nothing in front of him in his plane except extended ice. During his flight, he reached a huge, high wall that did not have any openings. He had to rise above it, which is what he did. After he crossed it, things completely changed, with moderate heat, rivers, and green forests, and this is what he saw in the first trip and upon return. He was asked to remain completely silent. Then there were 2 trips as well, and nothing was announced about them, but on the 4th trip the details were. I began my journey and began flying at 6 in the morning, and until 8:30 everything was normal. But at 10:09, communication was cut off due to the compass's confusion, and after half an hour he was above the green mountains and extended rivers, and at 10:05 he saw extinct mammoths with a different disc shape, the sun, and his inability, despite being an experienced pilot, to determine the direction of the sun. At 11:30 in the morning, his plane was lighter, as if it was floating in the air, and he was not the one controlling it. At 11:40, I was at the top of the port of an unknown city. At 12, a strange object was flying next to us. He described it as we talk today about flying saucers, which he confirmed it came out from bases in the depths of the earth. And he said, "We have never seen anything like it before." And a strange radiation was emanating from it. And at 12:05, we were hanging in the air without control, and we did not know where we were, but a message came in English over the radio. "Welcome, Admiral Richard. Relax. We are peaceful. We will land with you in 7 minutes," and we were relaxed from the amazement and horror of what we were in. At 12:15 we landed, and 2 men emerged from this body that was controlling our plane and took us to a palace where we met a man of great awe and dignity. He said that he was the ruler of Agartha, and they asked us to send a message. "Inform your leaders that we are affected by any destruction or wars between you that cause great harm to us, and that between us and them, there is more than one corridor linking our world and their world, and that they have tried to communicate with us, but we respond to those attempts violently, and he asked me not to return again, and that they will get us out in safety and peace, and I have already promised," and conveyed the message. The Italian researcher Amedeo Giannini confirmed in his book, The World Beyond the Poles, that there are vast lands beyond the ice wall. Edward Hendry, in his book The Great Lie About the Earth, touched on the flat earth theory, and that the earth is not spherical as he promotes it, and even if you disagree with him, dear viewer, I advise him to read it. Hitler directed a mission organized by the Secret Society of Attila. Hitler founded that society to search in Antarctica, where he believed that the earth was hollow and contained another world, and that the Aryan race of which he belonged came from distant lands. His mission was prepared with all scientific disciplines to discover it, which actually bore fruit. Hitler had successful journeys during which he communicated with other creatures that we now deal with in terms of science fiction. When Germany was on the verge of defeat, Hitler ordered most of his forces to head towards Antarctica, and they disappeared there. April 20, 1947. The crew of the ship, U-209, sent messages to the High Command in Berlin, confirming the fact that the Earth is hollow and has internal passages, which was used by the Reich fleet in 1944, and Hitler was the first to establish a military base there. And this is according to the maps that Germany keeps in the Nazi archives. At the end of World War II, it was deliberately rumored that Hitler committed suicide. He displayed a body of his likeness, but it later turned out to be a deception attempt, and weeks later, Soviet General Georgy Zhukov announced that Hitler was not dead, and that he had managed to escape, and by the end of 1945, the whole world knew about Hitler's escape from the Allies, and therefore World War II did not end. Hitler, despite being an individual, was a symbol of the Axis forces. There were observations confirming Hitler's escape, but a document was leaked from the American Federal Bureau of Investigation in September 1945. The Argentine city of Lavazza secretly received Hitler, which was confirmed by the Argentine researcher Abel Basti, author of the book The Führer in Argentina. Hitler emigrated and headed with his senior leaders, 2,000 German scientists, and more than 2 million German people of the Aryan race to the Antarctic and disappeared there. In March 1945, shortly before the end of World War II, the naval vessels U-530 and U-977 launched. From the Baltic Sea to Antarctica, then they appeared on the shores of Argentina, were arrested, and their crew was handed over to the United States of America to be interrogated for a period of nearly a full year. Then, after the Highjump operation was announced, it was announced to draw maps of the South Pole and discover it, but it was a military operation, and according to what Richard said, they lost in it. A lot of people, aircraft, and weapons. This operation was an extension of World War II between the Allies and the Nazis, which ended with the capture of many Nazi scientists, including Werner Braun, who founded NASA in 1958. 1943 Admiral Dönitz Karl said, "The German submarine fleet had completed the creation of an impregnable fortress for Hitler in another part of the world, meaning Antarctica." In his testimony, Georgy Zhukov said, "Germany sent an expedition in 1938 that established many underground German military bases, including the legendary Base 211, known as New Berlin. Many have confirmed that Hitler did not die or be killed or arrested, but rather he escaped, and his armies were led to Antarctica, where they discovered an opening into the depths of the earth. Hitler had also previously communicated with the Greys and provided the Nazis with what gave him military progress at the time." A photo was taken in 2016 of a pyramid buried in the middle of the ice, with only its top visible. Byrd had previously mentioned in his recorded interview. In his interview, he saw a pyramid that resembled the pyramids of ancient Egypt. Did the ancient Egyptians get there? We will discuss the curiosities of ancient civilizations. Just follow us. Follow us in the next video. We will show details of the creatures that live there in societies and their characteristics according to what the travelers who arrived there said and recorded in their books.